This is 4 minutes for Shazam. Ready? Shazam! Shazam is DC's latest superhero film attempt. Set in Philadelphia, though clearly in an alternate reality where Septa isn't covered in piss, nobody wears an Eagles jersey, and someone from Philly could ever be considered pure of heart. Young Billy Baxton gets superpowers from the last of an order of magical guardians and experiments with his powers before needing to overcome his personal trauma to save the world. Straight up, I really like this movie. Best DCEU movie by far. One of DC's biggest issues, among many, is that they've always tried to top the Marvel universe by following the exact formula of their films. And while Shazam does have slight notes of old and new Spider-Man movies, it does work as its own unique execution. It felt like it was made to be a fun superhero movie entirely its own thing, instead of a soulless product. Let me attempt to go through the things I didn't like first. Spoilers starting now. I think the manifestations of the 7 deadly sins could have been utilized a little better. I love them overall, but it would have been cool to see them always be drawn to people whose personality closest resembles their sin. The score music was very generic, and the pop music was just fine. The wintry Christmas time frame was slightly weird considering when the movie was released. It probably was just a scheduling thing or something, or maybe they really needed those Santa jokes. Is it a Philly snowballing Santa reference? And finally, the movie doesn't have too much of a deep, thoughtful message besides not isolating yourself, but it's primarily an action comedy, so I don't mind. Oh, and there's some inconsistencies with continuity where characters know and say things they shouldn't. All of those issues are basically nitpicks though. Like I said, it's just a good movie. Narratively, I never got lost and it never dragged. They set up aspects like the sharing of powers and the sins and that caterpillar thing very well. Even though they slacked on aspects like the color of Septa buses and city layout, it was still cool to see a Philly superhero movie that isn't from M. Night Shyamalan. Quick side note, do other cities feel that way about those inconsistencies, like New York or whatever? There were tons of genuinely funny lines and moments, with my favorites being Billy checking the rail map when he entered the magic realm, and the cameo at the end of the movie. It's technically very sound, with good CG, camera work, and a nice visual sharpness. The representation of the 7 deadly sins was really cool, and they did a great job designing them so that you'd know them by appearance. And the villain Dr. Sivana is generic in a good way, kind of like Red Skull or Spider-Verse Kingpin, where they clearly show his motivation and we get what he's doing, but he's also cartoonishly evil. Most importantly, this movie completely understood and nailed its characters, especially with the kids, which is pretty hard to do and lacking in other superhero movies. Every choice a character made and every step in their development felt completely natural, whether it was Billy or Freddy or any of the other orphans. With Billy and Freddy specifically, the experimentation with the powers and using them in not at all heroic ways was super fun and realistic. Coupled with the great acting and chemistry between those two as kids, Zachary Levi as adult Billy, and the rest of the family, I totally bought into everyone. Even later on when each kid gets their own Shazamification, they were still distinctly the individual kids and using their powers in fun ways. The discovery of the powers in and of itself was great. Looking back, the movie is actually kind of low on action and fight scenes, but it's for the benefit of the comedy, character growth, and showing the action in a fun, playful way when the time comes. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. Really solid movie. I really hope this does well and tops the other DC movies because this is exactly what they should be doing. I think instead of trying to rip off Avengers with all the tie-ins and serious tone, they should opt for how the universe is handled here. Characters all exist together, they mention Batman and Superman a lot, but it's not some huge dramatic thing. That approach would help distinguish them from Marvel and help bring in some of the tone from the old animated shows that DC is loved for. It's fun, hilarious, and filled with realistic characters and imagination. There's no point ranking it in terms of the rest of the DCEU. Like I said, it's the best and miles above everything else. But in general, I'd give it a 7.5 out of 10. And done.